Hello, and fasten your seatbelts. We're going to be presenting some topics today for your viewing enjoyment or listening enjoyment that may push you a little bit, stretch you a little bit, because these are some things that a lot of people don't normally listen to, read about, pay any attention to. I find that a lot of my friends and my family just are not going there with me when I bring up these topics. So I'm going to present them today just to give you maybe perhaps a first introduction to them. It may be not your first. You may have heard it a number of times and are just possibly starting to consider them as being viable. Or maybe it's something that you thoroughly enjoy and love to explore all the time. I'd love to get feedback as long as you're open-minded about it, because if you're going to just start out saying, no, this is ridiculous, I don't believe any of this, then you've pretty much bought hook, line, and sinker what you've been taught and told most of your life. I'm asking you to sit back, take a deep breath, allow the energy to move up and down your spine. Remember, I'm a meditation facilitator, so this is the way we start. To open into a place of an allowing, receptive mind and heart. This is about deceptions and misconceptions, living in this world of true and false. We seem to have evidence to support many sides of an issue. The topics presented are going to be versions of some people's truth. They are offered in a variety of sources, by a variety of sources, many of whom are experiencers. They've gone through these events themselves and they're just relating them to us. So even if you don't have a real life experience, but feel brave enough to dip your little toe into some of these possibilities, I invite you to sit back, and before you just close your mind and say, that's ridiculous, I'm not going there with you, just take a moment and consider, what if? I've always been taught to act as if, to open my mind, my heart to new possibilities. I'm asking you the same thing. Some people may not have the bandwidth for this. Some people are not comfortable with these considerations. Others may have heard this many times and need to hear it many more times before they consider it. I have some friends that will allow me a few sentences each time I see them. And then I say, that's it, Sherry. Stop there. So little by little over the course of years, they get a sense of some of these possibilities. I'm going to call them possibilities because who knows? Today we consider them, tomorrow we might reject them. Today we might reject some of them, tomorrow we will believe them with all our heart and soul. So let's see how far we can stretch our minds and consider some of these topics. It's an interesting experiment to turn, if you have a television set. I know a lot of my friends have given that up. To consider turning on NBC or CNN for 20 minutes and listening to their version of the day's events. Then turn on Fox News and listen to their version. It's almost as if people are living in two different universes. The same exact topic have, two completely opposite viewpoints. We need to listen to a certain extent, consider, research, and then decide for ourselves. Often we just have to go into our hearts because that's where we'll find the answers. So I'm asking you to not make any quick determinations, because obviously what we've been told about so many of these things is almost the opposite of what these experiencers, whistleblowers, researchers, employees, people that have been involved with some of these programs will tell us. So let's dive in. Take it as a myth, take it as legend, science fiction, or just conspiracy theories. At least a part of the mind will have had some resonance after listening. So these are the types of things that I'm going to present today, just on a very surface basis. Things that you've probably heard about and have rejected time and again, or maybe done further research on. The inner earth is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. We've heard various stories and versions of what could possibly be going on down there. I first heard about it from Helena Blavatsky in her Theosophical material. A lot of that was difficult to understand and still is difficult for me to understand, but she does mention inner earth people. People like Admiral Byrd, who have reported going into the inner earth as he was an admiral in the Navy, I believe. He was on a plane. He had a whole book about his experiences that was taken off the market as quickly as possible, but there are still excerpts from it available. What is it? What is the center of the earth? Is it a vortex of energy? Is it molten rock, as we're told? New material, new information coming in is telling us that it actually does get hotter, but then cooler, and then hotter, and then cooler as the pressure goes on throughout the planet. That the earth has various bodies just like we do. We have the physical double, the etheric, the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body, just as the earth does. So the earth has a heart, our Mother Earth, and it's not rock, apparently, according to some people. Do you believe that? It's something to consider. Another part that's of our lives and of what we've been taught is that the moon is dead. It's been there for eons. And that we went there in the 60s. We landed and planted our flag as Americans, as did the Russians. I don't know if they planted their flag. And then we left and we never went back. There are those that say there are a number of species living on the moon, under the moon's surface, that it is hollow. There's a lot of legends, ideas, fact or fiction about our moon. And because we are told by some who have seen these beings that we are not to go back to the moon because we've been threatened by a certain race from Orion, it's certainly a possibility. It's what I'm throwing out there today. Who knows? Others have told us that we have bases on Mars, inside Mars, and they describe them, they draw them. They talk about various battles that have been fought on Mars, that it's very divided and you must stay in your own section or possibly be blown up. We are told by some that we are engaged in commerce with about 600 different planetary beings, and that commerce is done from Mars. Consider it. I don't know. So other things that we have been told by some whistleblowers, some people that have been working in, either the Navy program or the Army program, the Air Force, NASA, the industrial complex, which is basically multinational corporations. some of the technology that has been developed from these huge organizations could really be helping us out, but they're mostly used to defend or to be at war in either space or on our planet. The technologies that we have been said to have originated from many of these different species, different planetary systems. I'll list some of the corporations later that have worked with the government on these advanced technologies through time. A book I read a while ago called Rachel's Eyes was about a hybrid human. And it sounded like it was in a base under the ground, like 60 or so floors under the ground, where they were doing genetic engineering. It's a fascinating book. Take it as fiction or nonfiction, but it tells the story of a person who was genetically engineered, one of hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands. She lived to tell about it until she was taken out because she wasn't as perfect as they wanted her to be. Again, I don't know. This is just a book I read. I read a lot of books. The whole idea of genetically engineering humanity, human beings, is an interesting concept because even though we argue about it or debate about it in our country, is it right, is it wrong, morally, ethically, religiously, it's been done for 50 years or more. It was actually done back tens of thousands, if not millions of years ago. There are those that tell us that the Anunnaki, who is basically a group of beings from other worlds, have genetically engineered us from the beginning, so that we're all genetically engineered. We're all parts of this and that, and that's what makes our Earth so special. Imagine, act as if. Could be true, could be totally not true. It certainly isn't what I was told in my anthropology class in college. It wasn't coming from the apes or the fish and evolving into the species that we are today. There are those that have interactions with otherworldly beings on the planet, and so many in Europe, because they don't immediately reject the idea. And South America. Paula Harris writes about a lot of these, having lived in Italy for over 15 years, and then spending a couple years in South America interviewing people with these experiences. You can always pick up her books and see what she has to say about it. All these different races living among us, they've been here for a long time. And a lot of them just look like us. Some shape-shift, some that are the higher consciousness are the ones that perhaps biolocate. They might disappear before people's eyes. And there are accounts of this. The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East is a series I read early on in my adult life that was about masters, Tibetan masters, who biolocated. Were they from other planets? Or were they just highly evolved humans from our planet? So when we even begin to talk about ETs, I like to call them star people or other terrestrials, we really have to have an open mind. The giggle factor comes in with a lot of people. They want to make fun of it because that's what the disinformation experts have done for so long. They tell us, are you kidding me? There's no proof of ETs on this planet or even out in space. And yet, here we are in a galaxy with billions of other planets, in a universe with billions of other galaxies, and in what some call the omniverse, with who knows how many other universes. We'll call them multiverse, as Alfred Lambert Weber does. He's got a book called The Omniverse, which is an excellent excellent source. So we can talk about ETs or not. It's up to you. It's really about what you want to learn. It's everywhere on the internet. You can find just about anything you want. I remember a few years ago doing a PowerPoint presentation to a conference and looking up on the internet, I think it was on Wikipedia, all the different species of aliens that are named and out there. I think there was, over 100. There are books that describe these other species of beings, how they dress, how they live, how they communicate, what their consciousness is. A lot of books. I probably read 50. So, it makes me kind of think that maybe there's something else out there besides Earth humanity. But again, if you watch a lot of fantasy movies about extraterrestrials, you might take it as just pure fiction, or you might decide that this has got to come from somewhere. My understanding is that Roddenberry, who wrote the Star Wars, which I didn't ever really watch, was a product of the QHHT, Quantum Healing Hypnotherapy, in the Dolores Cannon method, who is my teacher, who taught me personally how to do the quantum healing hypnotherapy. And I have experienced for many years people giving accounts of these kind of experiences. People mostly who believe in reincarnation will come up with many, many, many lives. Of course, there are those of us that believe we have thousands of lives. When you think about Earth time being perhaps 18 million years is what Helena Blavatsky says, and Alice Bailey. But before then, we've probably been in many different galaxies and planets. Big possibilities of many lives if you go back, if we're here forever. Forever is a very long time, right? One of the big things that is being talked about today is the planetary shift, the vibrational shift that we're going through on planet Earth at this time. And we're kind of being propelled by other galaxies, by our galaxy, by our solar system. And it's as if we don't have a choice, because our planet is caught in the spiraling up of consciousness, and it's changing the frequency on this planet. And so energetically, we are being shifted into other dimensions, into other densities, into other planes of existence. And it all depends, of course, on how ready we are. As David Wilcock likes to say, just be nice, people. If you're nice 50% of the time, you'll probably ascend. And I don't know if I really use that language. My background is Tibetan Buddhism, and before that was Catholicism. And I live with a Jewish man. So I get a variety of religious concepts. And I kind of like to meld them all together. It's like going into the inner planet. Everybody has a different experience because everybody goes in different ways. One person might go into the etheric field and say, oh, the inner earth is this, and this is the honeycomb existence of people that live there. And yes, there's reptilians there, and yes, there's spider people there, and there's just a variety, each living in their own little portion of it. Well, maybe. I don't know. But others go into a maybe deeper place in the emotional or astral body of the Mother Earth. And they're going to have very different experiences and meet different people. Of course, this is not in the physical realm that you can go there because it's not a physical existence. So that's kind of a shift in consciousness right there. Some may go all the way to the heart of the planet. And maybe it's a vortex, as Peter Moon and Radu and a number of people say in their books that they've experienced. If we go to that inner earth, is it a vortex that takes us to other dimensions? Does it take us to other planets? Does it take us to a higher understanding? Or is it just kind of impossible to even imagine what could happen. So you can see, as we are shifting our dimension, we see things differently. 3D is linear. We have time here in this linear dimensional earth. When we move into the higher fourth, into the fifth, we're going to see things very differently. Do you think that could be why some of these different news stations and their viewers have such opposing viewpoints? Because they're seeing it from different perspectives. You know what it's like when a whole crowd of people see something. Each person has their own explanation and view, their own perception of what happened right in front of them. And it's almost like as if we were all looking at something entirely different. Something to consider. Other parts of my research have included things that include why our senators, legislators, government officials, people in positions of power are so bullied and go along with either a party line or what they are told to say and do. It's a subject that nobody really likes to talk about. And if you mention the word, your YouTube video can come down. It starts with a P and it ends with Fedia. It's something that has been used probably since time immemorial, that is used to compromise people. You drug them, you put them in compromising positions, you stick young kids under them, you photograph them, and you have a lot of dirt on them. And from then on, they're either going to have their career ruined or they're going to do what you tell them. And this is what happens all the time. And you must all know this. It's not news. So, corporate, military, government, people in positions of power are often compromised in this way. It's not just in the movies. There are humans on this planet I have met. Adam Apollo, who lives near Denver, who gave a wonderful talk to a science and spirituality group a few months ago. I just fell in love with him. This man is brilliant. He's renowned. He's known for his astrophysics. He's probably the most brilliant human I've ever heard speak, but he's also filled with heart. I went up to him and got a little tongue-tied, and I said, after his talk, after this incredible scientific explanation of the universe, and I said, can I have a hug? And he hugged me, and he said, my Pleiadian sister. And I went, oh. So he's just one of those beings that you get close to and you just feel the love. There are many like that. We don't think of them as ETs. We think of them as normal Earth people. Well, maybe a little higher than normal, beyond the normal. Another one is Ananda Bosman. Look him up. This individual, Ananda, BOSMAN.com. Amazing, amazing, brilliant information from this person. So these are just topics. I'm not getting into them deeply. I'm not going to list all these ETs, although they're scrolling in front of me, and who the good ones are, who the bad ones are. They're all basically in their core essential being good. We just have to recognize them as such, and if they've gone on the left-hand path, they can be pulled back. Mind control. That's a topic I've been studying very deeply for many, many years, because I got so involved in the Montauk information. I was at a seminar with Duncan Cameron, who was the individual who actually sat on the chair that propelled a number of his coworkers into time, into the past, into the future. And again, believe it if you want. It's out there. I probably read 10 books on it. And sadly, Duncan recently passed. He had cancer that he just couldn't get through. There are many stories about mind control and Montauk and Operation Majestic, DARPA, Project Mockingbird, Project Blue Beam, Project Blue Book, Project Magic, Emerald Covenant. It goes on and on and on. The Montauk kept changing names to the Phoenix Project and then to Project Rainbow. You may know it as what happened with the Philadelphia experiment, how the ship got caught in time and the crew members ended up, some of them halfway in and halfway out of the ship physically. Their bodies were stuck in the middle of the boards of the ship. So Preston Nichols is a big one, and Al Bebeck, Stuart Spudlow. These are all people involved in this Montauk project. And I won't even get into how these poor children taken off the streets were used for their energy to help power some of these individuals. But again, they were mind controlled themselves. I don't believe they were bad individuals. Having met them, they seem like saints. The other word that you cannot say on YouTube anymore is about flags, and it starts with an F. And it's about flags that have been used throughout history to create the illusion that something has happened that we need to take action against. Many wars have been started because of this. Think of Iraq, that they have nuclear capabilities. Think of, well, it goes on and on. It could go into the many mass murders, many of the school shootings. These are things that are, unfortunately, somehow devised by psychotic human beings who want control of the planet, and they want to keep us divided. Boy, have they done a good job of that. And they want to keep us stupid, and they want to eliminate a lot of us. If you look at the Georgia Guidestone, you can see the whole plan. They want the population of the planet to be 500 million from 7 billion that it is now. So how have they been trying to accomplish their mission? There is the gene manipulation. There are projects with, I need to even talk about it. There are projects designed to control our minds, and we have the capability and have had the capability for 20, 40, 60 years on some level or another to actually shoot ideas into people's heads. I know it sounds insane. It sounds beyond ridiculous. There are those that have been in these programs that tell us that this is what they do and this is what they're capable of. So who knows who they've controlled, who they've mind controlled, and why. Anyway, it's something to explore. It started at Montauk in this past century and has proliferated into beyond words programs. There are other topics to consider, like Antarctica. The melting ice there is showing up all kinds of artifacts, bones, human remains, spaceships that have been under this ice for a very long time. And they're just chucking this evidence. They just don't, for some reason, they don't want humanity to know about it. That they think that we'll get scared. They'll think they'll lose control. I don't know. But there are those soldiers who talk about throwing something like 15,000 bones into the oceans around the Antarctic to cover up the evidence that there were these 30-foot, 9-foot, different sized beings that they found down there. It really does sound like science fiction, doesn't it? Who knows? But supposedly because more and more ice is melting, they're not going to be able to hide it, even though many different countries have people down there, bases down there working with this. You've certainly heard of what's been called the New World Order. Some call it the Cabal. It's the same thing as the Deep State and the Illuminati. Call it what you may. There are factions of this. Who are these people? It's pretty simple. It's the people that control us, that control our economy, that control governments. It's been talked about as being the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the DuPonts, 13 families who virtually control the world. They attend these satanic rituals. They've been in MK Ultra, making people programmable or making them into psychopathic slaves to do what they're told. Are they part of another Orion species? Some say so. I won't even say the word that starts with an R, because that just freaks people out. Recently, I came across a website. It is wanttoknow.info. They have a lot of information on this site that's well researched. There's a book called Lifting the Veil, which is on this site. It's the idea of using children for entrapment. It's about some of the psychopathic leadership. It's about the various projects and programs that have been used over time in our country and in England and in other countries to deliberately steering people in a different direction from the truth. There's a book called Trance that Ole Damagard, who works closely with the pedophilia. Oops, I said the P word. Pedophilia, pedocriminal tunnels. I've got pages and pages and pages here of links of people that have talked about and written about their experience in this human trafficking. I can read some of the names. You can investigate them. Kathy O'Brien, Bryce Taylor, Kathleen Sullivan, Cynthia Crawford, Max Spears, Sandy Bergen, Susan Martin, Miriam Delgado. I mean, it just goes on and on. These people have been horrifically tortured and used as slaves in their life. So I'd like to kind of close this and try to end it on a more positive tone. My sense of what we can do about this is to maintain as high a consciousness as we possibly can. If our frequency is so high that all the rest of this stuff doesn't even really exist, that's where we're going. And how do we maintain, how do we achieve a higher frequency? You know the answer. It's pretty simple. It's all about meditation, being of service, being a good, kind person, letting go of the need to project, stopping our habitual patterns of speaking, thinking, acting in a way that's just not how we would want to be treated. We have to move into not only the belief, because we've been believing this from the 60s since Seth Speaks, that we create our own reality. Yes. Now, instead of just having it in the mind, it's our job to live it. And as we do this, our frequency changes. We spiral up. We do need to know about this material, because living with our head in the sand isn't going to help a thing. We need to know about it. We need to take action and not allow it to just see it in our mind's eye as finished. See it as something that no longer can exist in a world of a higher consciousness. And we only can do this for ourselves. We can't go around telling everyone to be more conscious or to meditate more. It's a lot easier to actually tell other people to do it than to do it ourselves. But we need to each take responsibility, use the power that we are endowed with, use the mind, and use the heart. Love, light, power. So I'm just presenting these topics today. Something to think about. I don't know if I'll even put a section on where comments can come in, because people that have these programs about each of these subjects get the worst hateful comments. I don't really need that. I do have pages and pages of links, but all you need to do these days is go onto YouTube and type in the topic you want to investigate, and you get all kinds of responses, all kinds of sides of the issues. So that's my 2 cents for today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for considering. And thank you for being part of this incredible unity consciousness we all are a part of.